the moment, my LA Lakers are up 3-1 on the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals, meaning they are one game away from winning their 17th NBA championship, and sadly, we basketball junkies are one game away from entering the 2020 offseason, which will be one of the weirdest in recent history based on the time frame and outside circumstances. Going into the offseason, there has been a lot of conjecture surrounding trade rumors, teams with disgruntled stars, win-now vets on rebuilding teams, and players on teams where it just simply didn't work. With that being said, these are 8 notable players that I believe are most likely to be traded in this coming offseason. So at number 8, I have Russell Westbrook. I don't really think this will happen. One reason is that they only had 1 year of the James Harden Brody experiment, and they're friends, so I don't think James Harden would want Russell Westbrook traded. Number 2, I kind of think it's hard to really trade the Russell Westbrook contract. I don't think there's a lot of teams out there that would want to take on, 2 or 3 more years of Russell Westbrook making $40 million. And number 3, it's hard to really make a trade, or for me to really create a trade that would make the Rockets better in terms of trading Westbrook. But there may be one out there. But for reasons why I do think this will happen is maybe Daryl Morey, the Rockets GM, will go for Harden as the only ball handler again. That is the kind of Rockets team we saw in 2015 to 2016 and the subsequent years before that season. Another reason why they might trade Brody is maybe they try to get off the contract a couple of years sooner. Maybe they try to replace some of the draft capital that they lost when they traded for Russell Westbrook. Maybe them trading Russell Westbrook will also mean them trading James Harden and they embrace a full-on rebuild. So for a sample trade that I thought of, I have the Rockets getting Victor Oladipo, Miles Turner, and the 2023 Indiana first, while the Pacers get Westbrook. On the Rockets side of things, the Rockets get an actual center that can space the floor and defend the rim. They also get Victor Oladipo, a great perimeter defender in the backcourt who's on an expiring contract, so they can choose if they want to bring him back or let him walk. And they get a first round pick to kind of alleviate their deficiency in that department. On Indiana's side of things, they get a bona fide star caliber player, and on some nights a superstar caliber player, because Indiana is a very, very, very small market in the NBA, one of the smallest markets in the NBA. So the only real way that they will get star power is through the draft or making a trade like this, because they're never going to get one in free agency. They get Russell Westbrook, a bona fide star. They get rid of Miles Turner. It's been a whole thing having Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis on the court at the same time. It hasn't really worked. So by trading away Miles Turner, they allow Sabonis to play at center full time, and they get some value for the expiring contract of Victor Oladipo. At number 7, I have Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal really came on the scene this season. This was his career year in terms of scoring, in terms of his play in general. The main reason I don't really think this will happen is because John Wall, thankfully, will finally be back. It feels like a whole century since we've seen John Wall on the floor, but he'll finally be back. With him back, the Wizards may want to measure their team success with them both on the floor at the same time, especially with Beal as the definitive number 1 option. But there are reasons why this could happen. Maybe Washington wants to embrace a rebuild, and with Bradley Beal being their most valuable asset, using him as a trade chip, they could get a lot of future first round picks or a young ascending star. So a sample trade I have is the Wizards trading with the Atlanta Hawks, getting Cameron Reddish, Atlanta's 2020 first round pick, Atlanta's 2021 first round pick, OKC's 2023 first round pick, and DeAndre Hunter. And the Hawks get Bradley Beal. On the Wizards side of things, they get 2 young ascending players that were recent draft picks that have a lot of potential. They get the 6th overall pick this year, and they get future first round picks. And in doing so, they cash out on Beal's value while it's at an all-time high coming off of his career year. For the Hawks side of things, they get an elite scorer that can take some pressure off of Trae, can work perfectly off of Trae, off the ball, and they also get a star entering the prime of his career if he isn't in it already, who's only 27 years old. It's not like they're getting somebody that's exiting their prime. But again, I don't really think this is likely because the Wizards would want to test the John Wall Beal backcourt and see how it fares, so I don't think he'll be getting traded this offseason. At number 6, I have Caris LeVert. This is a big possibility because it's an unkept secret that Brooklyn may want to add a definitive 3rd star if they don't think Caris can develop into that. He's on a good contract and he is relatively young. The sample trade I have here is the Nets getting Paul George, Pandemic P, and the Clippers getting Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, and the Brooklyn 2024 first round pick. In this trade, the Nets get their proven third star that can run either at shooting guard if KD runs the small forward position, or at small forward if KD runs power forward. Paul George should excel as a third scoring option, especially being that there won't be much pressure on him to perform as a number 2 guy in the playoffs, because we know his struggles in the playoffs over the past couple of years, because he'll have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to defer to. On the Clippers side of things, they get an actual offensively talented point guard instead of having to start Patrick Beverley, which wasn't really a guy that could create offense like that or create offense for himself. And having somebody as offensively talented as Dinwiddie at the point guard position, that was their Achilles heel, because they didn't have that this playoff run, and they didn't really have anybody that could create offense for others like that. And even though Dinwiddie is a score first point guard, I think he is a big offensive upgrade over Patrick Beverley. They also get a young scoring star on the wing in Karis LeVert that kind of replaces the production that PG provided. They get a young rim protecting center in Jared Allen. They can choose between him and Zubac, and they get a first round pick to kind of alleviate some of the draft capital that they lost in the Paul George trade. Honestly, I don't think this trade will happen, but I just heard this one from my friend, and I can't really think of any other trades for Karis LeVert that would get the Nets a third star. But I do think this is more likely than Beal or Russell Westbrook getting traded in the offseason. At number 5, we have Andrew Wiggins. Now, there's reason to believe why he wouldn't get traded. Maybe the Warriors see something in Andrew Wiggins. Maybe they can reform him into the two-way shot-creating wing that many thought he could become, entering the draft and entering the league, which obviously didn't pan out. But there are many reasons why I think this trade is very likely. The Warriors don't really need much help on the perimeter. They could just have a 3-and-D wing at the position and be fine. Having Klay Thompson and Steph Curry in the backcourt provides more than enough scoring. Also, Wiggins has a contract to match up with stars and superstar caliber players around the league, given that he's making high $20 million per year. And the Warriors, we all know this, they have a hole at center that they could use Wiggins and maybe their number 2 pick to fill that hole at center. So in this sample trade, I have the Warriors getting Joel Embiid, while the 76ers get Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, the 2nd overall pick, Minnesota's first round pick next year, Golden State's first round pick next year, Denver's 2nd round pick in 2022, Toronto's 2nd round pick in 2023. In this trade, the Warriors get an elite talent at center, the most talent that they've had at that position since they got DeMarcus Cousins that was recovering from an injury. They get Joel Embiid, a player who we know would thrive if he had shooting around him, and the Warriors are the definition of shooting around him. You have the 2 greatest shooters of all time playing outside of Joel Embiid. This would make them a lethal offense, having that attack inside and out. Joel Embiid, one of the best low post scoring options, and Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, lethal, deadly snipers on the outside. On the 76ers side of things, they get the 2nd pick. They can draft a shot-creating scoring guard that you kind of want to play with Ben Simmons. They can draft either LaMelo or Anthony Edwards, whoever falls to number 2. They get numerous future draft assets, and they get a good shot-creating wing in Andrew Wiggins. Even though he did not live up to his potential, he is still a good shot-creating wing who can put up around 18, 19, maybe 20 points per game. Even though I definitely do see it as a big possibility that Wiggins gets traded this offseason, it might not be this particular sample trade, because I can only see the 76ers agreeing to this if they really, really wanted to separate from Embiid from Simmons, and were set on trading Embiid, but they couldn't get any more quality offers because maybe other teams are afraid of Embiid's injury history. So that I would only see this if this was really the best package that the 76ers could get for Embiid. So now we move into the top 4. At number 4, I have Buddy Hield. I definitely think this trade will happen this offseason. Hield has been expressed that he wants out of Sacramento. I mean, there's been a lot of turmoil between Hield and the front office in Sacramento, even when Vlade Divac was there. And Buddy Hield, even though he's on a really big contract for the type of player he is and for the age that he is, he's a lot older than you may think. He is one of the best shooters in the league, and shooting is extremely valued nowadays in the NBA. So I think there will be teams that would really want to trade for Buddy Hield. And a team that I have in the sample trade trading for him is one that we've already mentioned. In this trade, the Kings get Al Horford, the Phillies 2025 first round pick, Atlanta's 2021 second, and Orlando's 2021 second. And the 76ers get Buddy Hield. On the Kings side of things, they get a veteran in Al Horford at the center position for whatever that is worth. Hopefully Al Horford can add winning culture, provide leadership, mentor Marvin Bagley, Rashawn Holmes, Harry Giles, those young bigs. They get future draft assets as well. On the 76ers side of things, they add a much needed asset in terms of shooting. That is the worst kept secret that the 76ers team needs. What do they need most? It's shooting. Buddy Hield provides that. So they get that. They get smaller in terms of getting Al Horford out of Philly in general, so they don't have to worry about, oh, do we start him? Do we put him on the bench? Add Buddy Hield into the backcourt. They get smaller, get more shooting. This will help the team tenfold if they want to keep Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid together. With that being said, Buddy Hield just got an extension, I think last year, so by no means do the Kings have to offer Buddy Hield's trade requests at the moment, like immediately, but it would kind of be really awkward if he came back into training camp and started the year with the team. It would just be really awkward. So that's why I kind of think it's likely to get traded this offseason. At number 3, we have Paul George. I think it will happen this offseason. I think everybody outside of Kawhi is available on the trade market, and the Clippers are going to do anything under their power to try and convince Kawhi to stay with the Clippers and sign an extension in the 2021 offseason, and maybe trading Paul George is a start. A sample trade I have here. This is kind of a fun one. All right, I just want to really preface that by saying this is more of a fun trade that I kind of thought about. The Clippers get Russell Westbrook and the Rockets get Paul George.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now hear me out. The Clippers get a star at the point guard position. Major area of concern was playmaking, especially at the point guard position, someone that can effectively get easy offense for others that really can't create offense for themselves. Brody is a great table setter. We've seen this in the past. On the Rockets side of things, they get an elite two-way shot creating wing. James Harden reverts back to being the full-time point guard. Harden gets an elite off-ball scorer in replacement of a player that was basically zero off-ball, and replacing Russell Westbrook with Paul George. Now, I think this trade makes sense, but I don't really think it's going to happen. Like I said, it's more of a fun trade. Just to think about, I couldn't really think about other Paul George trade options besides the one that I had in terms of Brooklyn getting Paul George. This one is fun, being that Paul George and Russell Westbrook, they're both former teammates that have been both scapegoated by their current teams for their play in the playoffs. Even though I don't think this particular sample trade is likely, I do think it's likely that Paul George gets traded this offseason. At number 2, I have Chris Paul. I think this will happen. Hopefully you've seen my 7 possible Chris Paul trades. I talked about this. He made a video where he was filmed, where he was thanking the Oklahoma City fans for an incredible season, for welcoming him with welcoming arms, yada yada yada. It just seemed like it was over. And with them just not bringing back Billy Donovan, it seems like OKC is going to start to gravitate towards building around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and really embracing a rebuild. I think this will happen because OKC will definitely want to capitalize on the value that CP3 showed in the season and in the playoffs while that's fresh in everyone's head, while everybody's forgetting about the fact that he's 34, 35 years old. This is the highest CP3's trade value will ever be, so I think OKC will really want to trade him this offseason. A sample trade I have is kind of one I just recycled for my Chris Paul trade video. Oklahoma City receives Eric Bledsoe, Ersan Ilyasova, George Hill, DJ Wilson, Indiana's first round pick in this coming draft, and Milwaukee's 2026 first round pick, while Milwaukee receives Chris Paul. On OKC side of things, they get 2 firsts out of an aging CP3. They get a young player in DJ Wilson, and they also get Eric Bledsoe to replace CP3 if the Thunder still want to kind of compete and sell tickets because they're a smaller market team. On Milwaukee side of things, they get an elite point guard in the pick and roll to set up Giannis to kind of force feed him easy buckets in the paint. CP3 provides much more shot creation than Eric Bledsoe provided, and shot creation in the half court is what Milwaukee needed the most this playoff run. Possibly this is a trade that will make it more appealing for Giannis to stay in Milwaukee, and we know Milwaukee is going to be desperate to try and do anything to make Giannis stay in Milwaukee. So at number 1, the most likely notable player to get traded this offseason is Victor Oladipo, in my eyes at least. I think this definitely will happen. Number 1, he's on a 1-year contract. Number 2, he's voiced that he wants to leave. So I think Indiana is definitely going to want to get some value for him. I already mentioned the trade earlier in the video, but in this sample trade, I have another one sending him to the Dallas Mavericks. In this sample trade, the Pacers get Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr., Golden State's 2021 second round pick, Dallas's 2023 second round pick, and Miami's 2024 second round pick. And the Mavericks get Victor Oladipo. In this trade, Indiana gets a young, good point guard in Jalen Brunson. They have Malcolm Brogdon, so they can just move Malcolm Brogdon back to the shooting guard position and start Jalen Brunson at PG. They get a good shot creating wing in Tim Hardaway Jr., and they get 3 second round picks for an expiring contract in Victor Oladipo. You may be thinking, Ryan, this is really not a good haul for trading Victor Oladipo, but I don't really think there's going to be a big haul for a Victor Oladipo trade, honestly, because number 1, Victor Oladipo is not a superstar. I really loved seeing Victor Oladipo play when he first got to Indiana and was facing off against Bron in the playoffs, forced Bron to a Game 7. That was a really fun series to watch and really fun to see Victor Oladipo emerge as a budding star. But he's not a superstar. We just got to be blunt. He's coming off a serious injury, and he's on a 1-year contract where teams may be fearful that he may just leave their team that they traded all their assets for just to walk to another team. So that's why I don't think Indiana will really get a big haul for Victor Oladipo. I think this is one of the best offers that they will get. On Dallas' side of things, they really buy low on Victor Oladipo's value. They get a 2-way shot creating guard on an expiring contract. If they like Oladipo, they can bring him back. If not, they can just let him walk and save a max slot in the 2021 offseason. It's not really a big opportunity cost, because Tim Hardaway Jr. is on an expiring deal as well. I think they're going to let him walk if they want to target a max caliber player in 2021. And they'll be losing Jalen Brunson, which Jalen Brunson is a really good, solid point guard, but I don't really think that is a big loss for Dallas because Jalen Brunson didn't play in the 2020 playoff run, and we saw how good Luka was in terms of forcing that Clippers team to six games. Luka could have dropped off the Clippers in the first round, so I don't think that's a big loss for getting a year of Victor Oladipo and just kind of testing what he is as a player. Maybe he works out as a backcourt partner with Luka Doncic.